Hey beloved, welcome back to my channel. I truly appreciate your constant support. It means the world to me. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and hit that button so you never miss another powerful story. Now, get comfortable. Grab your chair, your drink, or whatever makes you cozy because today's story is deeply emotional and incredibly inspiring. It's about a heartless stepmother who forced a pregnant orphan to marry a homeless man. But what she didn't know was that she was actually sending that girl straight into a home overflowing with blessings and destiny. You don't want to miss a second of this. Let's dive in. A house without love. At just 19, Alara Whitmore had endured more loss than most people could imagine. Her father, Gregory Whitmore, a respected antique dealer in Bath, England, died in a freak car accident on a business trip to Greece. Her mother had passed away during childbirth, leaving Alara an orphan once Gregory was gone. Before his death, Gregory had hastily married a woman named Cordelia, sleek, elegant, and ice-cold beneath her designer smile. Cordelia was not cruel in the traditional, raging way. She didn't shout or slap, but her weapon was indifference. She treated Alara like a bothersome duty. Once Gregory was buried, Cordelia's true colors shone. She sold most of the antiques in their home, claimed Alara's inheritance was locked in litigation, and began spending extravagantly on herself and her son from a previous marriage, Jerome. For Alara, life became a routine of cleaning, serving Cordelia's parties, and being constantly reminded that she was lucky to still have a roof over her head. That roof became more unstable when Alara discovered she was pregnant. She had been in love, naively so, with Daniel, a charming older man who promised her everything. When she told him she was pregnant, he vanished without a trace. Cordelia was enraged. A bastard child? Under my roof? You shame me, girl, she spat. You want to raise a child? Fine. But you won't do it here. Either abort it or marry and move out. Alara was devastated, terrified, and with nowhere else to go. Cordelia, sensing an opportunity to finally be rid of the girl without tarnishing her own reputation, concocted a plan. A man from the streets. In a park on the other side of town, a scruffy-looking man named Adrian slept under an overpass. His beard was unkempt, his coat torn, and his shoes worn to the sole. To passers-by, he was just another vagrant in the city of London. But Adrian Blackstone had a secret. 2 years ago, Adrian had been one of the wealthiest tech entrepreneurs in Europe. The founder of a revolutionary cybersecurity firm. He was a billionaire by 32. Then came a betrayal. His trusted business partner, Harold Wainwright, had staged a coup, manipulated board members, and ousted Adrian. His assets were frozen in a pending legal battle. Adrian, heartbroken and disillusioned by greed and betrayal, had vanished from the public eye. But he didn't disappear into luxury or revenge fantasies. He vanished into the streets, voluntarily. He wanted to live among those whom society ignored, to reconnect with what truly mattered. On a chilly November morning, Cordelia found him. She had been driving past Hyde Park when she saw him sitting on a bench, feeding the pigeons. Perfect, she whispered. She approached him, designer coat swaying. How'd you like to make £5,000? Adrian looked up, eyes calm and unreadable. Depends. I'm not doing anything illegal. I need you to marry someone. A formality. You'll get paid. Then disappear. Adrian raised a brow. Marry? Yes. A stupid, foolish girl. My stepdaughter. Pregnant. Needs to be someone's responsibility, not mine. Adrian smiled faintly. What makes you think I'm suitable for that? Cordelia scoffed. You don't need to be suitable. You just need to be gone once it's done. He stared at her for a long moment, then slowly said, All right, I'll do it. A marriage of shame. Alara wore a second-hand dress that morning. It was faded ivory with lace fraying at the edges. Her eyes were hollow, and her body trembled under the thin fabric. She hadn't even met the man Cordelia forced her to marry. All she knew was that he was homeless, and she was marrying him because her stepmother had given her no other option. Adrian, dressed in a clean but simple suit Cordelia provided, looked just as out of place. His eyes found Alara's and paused. There was a softness there, a broken innocence. I'm Adrian, he said gently when they were briefly alone before the vows. Alara, she whispered. You don't want this either? I never said that, he replied with a quiet smile. Let's survive it together. The marriage ceremony was performed at a low-profile registry office, witnessed only by Cordelia and one of her friends. There were no rings, no kisses, just papers signed in a hasty handshake. When they walked out, Cordelia handed Adrian the promised envelope of cash. Take her. Leave. I never want to see either of you again. A home among the forgotten. Adrian didn't take Alara to the streets. Instead, he brought her to a modest apartment he secretly owned under a different name. He explained little, simply said, "It's not much, but it's safe." She was confused but grateful. That night, they shared soup, sat quietly, and avoided discussing their bizarre new life. Days turned into weeks. Alara began to notice things. Adrian's way of speaking, his knowledge of books, the tech gadgets subtly hidden in the apartment. He wasn't like the other homeless people she'd occasionally met, and he was kind, never made her feel like a burden. He even took her to prenatal appointments, learned how to cook healthy meals for her, and read aloud to the baby in her belly. One night, while Alara was asleep, Adrian opened his laptop. A secure connection lit up the screen. Messages from his legal team flickered in. "The court is ruling in your favor," one message said. "You'll regain control of the company soon. Are you ready to come back?" He stared at the screen, then looked at Alara, curled on the sofa with a hand on her belly. He smiled. Not yet. The truth unfolds. Alara gave birth to a baby girl, whom she named Ivy. Adrian was there, holding her hand through the pain, cutting the cord, crying when he saw the baby. They had fallen into a quiet rhythm. Love was not spoken, but it bloomed in the shared silences, the way he held Ivy as if she were his own, and the way Alara looked at Adrian with growing wonder. But the world was stirring. One day, Cordelia appeared at their doorstep. Her face turned pale the moment Adrian opened the door. "You," she gasped. "You're Adrian Blackstone?" Alara stared in shock. Adrian didn't deny it. "Hello again, Cordelia." Alara turned to him. "You're who?" He sighed, then told her everything. The company, the betrayal, the fall, the decision to live differently. Cordelia's eyes blazed. "You tricked me. I could have been rich." Adrian smirked. "You threw me away like trash. And now you want a stake in the fortune." She tried to argue, threaten, and beg. But Adrian had security escort her out of the building, his building, as she would soon learn when the tabloids broke the story the next day. Redemption and rise. The media went wild. Adrian Blackstone found living on the streets, now reclaims tech empire. Photos of Alara, Ivy, and their small wedding leaked. But the public didn't mock. Most admired him. The humble billionaire who chose compassion over revenge. Alara, overwhelmed, retreated. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. Adrian took her hand. "Because I didn't want you to love me for my name. I wanted you to love the man I am." "I think I already do," she whispered. They remarried a year later, this time in a grand garden under blossoms and soft candlelight. Ivy toddled between them, her laughter echoing through the aisles. The fall of Cordelia. Meanwhile, Cordelia faced investigations. She had forged Gregory Whitmore's will to access funds that weren't hers. Her lies unraveled quickly once Alara, now married to a billionaire, hired the best lawyers to reclaim what was rightfully hers. Jerome, Cordelia's son, tried to escape the fallout but was arrested for fraud related to Cordelia's laundering schemes. The Whitmore estate was returned to Alara. She donated a large portion to shelters and women's centers, never forgetting her own near destitution. A love earned. Years later, Alara and Adrian sat on the porch of their country home, Ivy playing with her younger brother nearby. "You saved me," Alara said. Adrian smiled. "No, you saved me." Their story, once one of shame and forced union, became one of unexpected grace. A stepmother's cruelty had tried to destroy a life, but it ended up giving birth to a love stronger than wealth, deeper than betrayal, and more powerful than fate. An invitation and a challenge. One autumn morning, while the golden leaves fell outside their country estate, Alara received a formal invitation embossed in gold. The Global Women in Tech Conference, cordially invites Mrs. Alara Whitmore Blackstone to deliver the keynote speech on resilience, motherhood, and innovation. She stared at the letter, unsure if it was a mistake. Adrian smiled as he watched her reread it for the 5th time. "You inspire people, Alara," he said. "You went from being abandoned and forced into a sham marriage to building a life not only for yourself but for Ivy and others. People want to hear that story." Alara hesitated. "But I'm not a tech mogul. I didn't create anything. You created a home where there was none. That's more than most can say." She accepted the invitation. The day of the conference arrived with a flurry of nerves. Alara stood before a packed auditorium of women, students, entrepreneurs, and press. Her hands trembled slightly as she began. "I was once the girl people pitied or ignored. I was orphaned, pregnant, and forced into a marriage I didn't choose. But in that unlikely story, I found not just safety, but purpose, love, and strength. My daughter gave me a reason to survive. My husband gave me the freedom to grow. And now I want to give others the same." Her words moved the audience. A standing ovation followed. For the first time in her life, Alara felt not like someone's burden, but someone's inspiration, a shadow from the past. Weeks later, Alara was at a gala supporting homeless youth when a man approached her during the cocktail hour. He wore a gray coat, his hands slightly shaking. "Alara, do you remember me?" he asked. She blinked, then her heart dropped. Daniel. It was him. The man who had promised her love and left when she needed him most. The father of her child. I saw you in the papers," Daniel stammered. "I had no idea you were doing so well. I wanted to say, I'm sorry." Alara stood still, her mind spinning. Memories came flooding back of tears, of empty nights, of praying he'd return. "You left me pregnant and terrified," she said. "Now you show up because I'm married to a billionaire? No, that's not, well, maybe partly. But I regret what I did." Adrian, who had been watching from a distance, approached calmly. "Everything all right, love?" Daniel looked at Adrian and visibly tensed. "You're her husband?" Adrian nodded. Daniel's jaw clenched. "So this is how it ends. I was a coward and you swooped in." Alara took Adrian's hand. "No." I rose. "You just missed your chance to grow with me." As they walked away, Daniel remained behind, swallowed by the noise and lights, another ghost of the past unable to haunt her anymore. Cordelia's final card. Just when peace seemed permanent, Cordelia resurfaced. Released early from prison on technicalities, she now lived in a small apartment funded by donations from her former socialite friends who pitied her fall from grace. But Cordelia wasn't done. She filed a lawsuit claiming she had acted under mental stress and manipulated grief after Gregory Whitmore's death and demanded part of the inheritance back. Adrian's legal team, led by his brilliant attorney Clara Meeks, saw through it immediately. "She's playing a long game," Clara told Alara, "trying to gain public sympathy and stage a comeback. We can either destroy her legally or let her self-destruct." Alara thought long and hard, then said, "Let her talk. Let her tell the world everything." At the next court hearing, Cordelia arrived in a dramatic black veil, her lawyer spinning a sob story about grief-induced errors. Alara stood in calm contrast, Ivy sitting beside her, clutching a plush bear. When Cordelia took the stand, she cracked. "She was never meant to succeed," she screamed. "She was supposed to marry that man and vanish." Gasps echoed across the courtroom. Every journalist's pen scratched furiously. The judge slammed the gavel. "Motion to dismiss. And I recommend further investigation into your fraudulent claims, Mrs. Whitmore." Outside the courtroom, reporters surrounded Alara. "Any comment?" one asked. She smiled. "Let the past bury itself. I have a future to raise. Seeds of change." With the lawsuit closed, Alara and Adrian founded the Ivy Grace Foundation, a global initiative offering shelter, education, and maternity support for homeless young women. One night, after launching a new center in Nairobi, Alara watched a group of girls learning coding basics in a bright classroom. Tears welled up in her eyes. "They're going to change the world," Adrian whispered beside her. "I just wanted to survive," Alara said. "But now, I feel like I'm planting forests." She turned to Adrian. Do you ever wish we had met under different circumstances? He smiled. No. If I hadn't been broken, I wouldn't have recognized the beauty in someone else who was trying to survive. Pain introduced me to you. And you introduced me to purpose. They kissed under the Kenyan stars, the sound of children laughing not far off. A letter for Ivy. On Ivy's 5th birthday, Alara wrote her a letter, sealed in an envelope labeled, "For when you're grown." My darling Ivy, you were born in the darkest moment of my life. But your cry was a light I never knew I needed. You saved me, even before you spoke a word. I want you to know that you were never a mistake. You were my miracle. I married your father, not by choice, but by fate. And fate was kind to me. It gave me a man who stepped into your life without hesitation, and who became more of a father than biology ever could have provided. Grow knowing you are loved. Deeply, fiercely, and endlessly. She tucked it into a memory chest alongside baby clothes, hospital bracelets, and their first family photo. Full circle. 10 years later. Ivy stood on the stage of a youth conference in Geneva, now a confident 15-year-old advocate for displaced children. Alara and Adrian watched from the front row, beaming. I'm here today, Ivy said, because someone chose not to give up. My mother was thrown away by her own family. My dad, well, let's just say he was richer than he looked. But they taught me that identity isn't shaped by beginnings. It's shaped by what we choose to build. Cheers erupted. Adrian clapped with tears in his eyes. Alara held his hand tightly. When the conference ended, Ivy came down and embraced them. I hope I made you proud, she whispered. You always do, Alara replied. That night, back in their London home, the family sat around a fire. Alara leaned into Adrian's shoulder. You ever think about that park bench? She asked. He chuckled. Every time you smile. Epilogue. Cordelia eventually faded into obscurity, her manipulations exposed and her allies scattered. She lived the rest of her days reading about the family she once tried to destroy, now beloved, powerful, and untouchable in their unity. Alara went on to write a memoir titled The Marriage I Didn't Choose, Finding Love, Power, and Purpose in the Unexpected. It became a bestseller, later adapted into a film that moved millions. Adrian retired from public tech leadership but continued investing in startups run by women, especially those with stories like Alara's. As for Ivy, she became one of the youngest UN Goodwill ambassadors, dedicating her life to the very people her parents once were. The mansion had grown quieter, not from a lack of life, but from change. Ivy, now 16, was in the middle of that messy bridge between childhood and womanhood. She still had her mother's eyes and her father's calm strength, but lately, her laughter came less freely. Alara, she's shutting me out, Adrian said one night while folding a cashmere blanket at the end of their bed. She's trying to find her own voice, Alara replied. I think she's afraid of being overshadowed. Adrian turned. By us. By everything we are. Who we became. She grew up in our shadow. She didn't struggle like we did. And that, Alara realized, was both a blessing and a quiet burden for Ivy. At breakfast the next morning, Ivy came down in a leather jacket and ripped jeans. Her school uniform sat untouched on the bed upstairs. Ivy, Alara said gently. Isn't there school today? I'm not going. Not to that polished bubble where everyone thinks I'm the billionaire baby. I hate it there. Alara's voice remained calm. Education matters, Ivy. I get educated every day watching you. Watching Dad run a company. Watching people fake smiles and say one thing while doing another. Adrian folded his napkin. What's really going on? Ivy sighed and dropped her phone on the table. One of the girls from school posted a video. Of me. Secretly. In the locker room. Said I'm probably a charity case you picked up from a dumpster. Alara's chest tightened. Oh, Ivy. I'm tired of pretending this life is normal, she snapped. Everyone expects me to be grateful and polished and perfect, but I didn't choose this life either. That word stung Alara. Didn't choose. Just like she hadn't chosen hers either. The DNA rift. One night, Ivy asked a question that shattered the stillness of the room. Can I meet him? She asked softly. Who? Alara replied. My real dad. Alara froze. Adrian looked away. Alara had kept the truth from Ivy, not out of cruelty, but protection. Daniel had vanished again after his courtroom apology, but Ivy had grown curious, and the internet, of course, knew his name. "He's not who you imagine," Alara said. "He was young, afraid, and when I needed him, he left." "I know," Ivy said, "but I want to hear it from him, even if it's just once." Adrian said nothing for a while. Then finally, he placed a hand on Alara's. "She deserves to know where she comes from. It won't change how we raised her, or how much we love her." Reluctantly, they agreed. A shattered mirror. They arranged the meeting in a neutral cafe in Notting Hill. Daniel arrived in a plain coat, a rougher version of the man Alara once knew. Age and guilt had hardened him. Ivy walked in with a quiet confidence, her posture tense. For a moment, Daniel just stared. "You look just like her," he said. Ivy sat down. "Why did you leave her? Why did you leave me?" Daniel swallowed. "I was afraid. We were young. I didn't know how to be a father or a man." "But you knew how to disappear," Ivy replied. Alara watched from the car outside, hand gripping the wheel, barely breathing. Daniel wiped his eyes. "I've watched from a distance. Every charity she built. Every award you won. I don't deserve to be part of that." "Then why ask to meet me?" "I didn't. You did. And I want to say thank you. For surviving without me. For becoming better than I ever was." Ivy nodded stiffly. "I think I just needed to see what I didn't miss." When she walked out, her hands trembled. Alara hugged her without a word. "Thank you for not lying to me," Ivy whispered. Cracks beneath power. While Ivy healed from that encounter, the world outside their mansion grew more complex. Adrian's growing wealth brought vultures, anonymous exposés, accusations of corruption in his African tech schools. Most were baseless, but one whistleblower claimed his Kenyan branch had used unapproved software on student devices. "We could lose our global license if this gets traction," said Clara, their longtime lawyer. Alara paced. "What's the truth?" Adrian sighed. "We trusted a subcontractor. I didn't double-check their code. It was sloppy. That's on me." "You need to say that," Alara urged. "People forgive mistakes. They don't forgive cover-ups." Adrian held a press conference. In front of flashing cameras, he said, "We let a breach slip through. I take full responsibility. But we're not walking away. We're rebuilding. Stronger." His honesty salvaged his image, but shook his confidence privately. That night, Adrian sat in the garden. "I used to think success made you untouchable," he said. "Now I know it just makes you a bigger target." Alara sat beside him. "But it also gives you a bigger shield." Us. Cordelia's collapse. Across town, Cordelia Whitmore had reached rock bottom. After multiple failed lawsuits and public humiliation, she was now living in a government-supported facility. Her once golden hair had thinned, her nails unpainted. But what she hadn't lost was spite. One night, she met with a scandal-hungry blogger. "They painted me as evil," Cordelia whispered. "But you don't know the truth. Gregory was going to rewrite the will. He was pressured by Alara. She manipulated him." The blogger smelled blood. "Do you have proof?" Cordelia opened a faded folder. Letters. Faxes. Partial documents. Enough to stir doubt. The blogger published a story. Billionaire widow manipulated old man into inheritance? New allegations surface. The story exploded online. Alara's inbox lit up. TV crews camped outside their gate. Ivy got harassed at school again. "I hate her," Ivy cried. "I hate that woman." But Alara stood firm. "She wants us to break. She's desperate. We've survived worse." Clara sued for defamation. At trial, the letters Cordelia provided were proven doctored. The judge ruled in Alara's favor again. Cordelia was ordered to pay fines she couldn't afford. As she was escorted out of court, she whispered to Alara, "You think you've won. But money ruins everyone. Even you." Alara didn't respond. But her heart beat with a strange mix of pity and closure. The secret letter. Months later, Alara received a parcel addressed in old handwriting. It was from Gregory Whitmore, dated weeks before his death. She opened it with shaking hands. "Alara, If you are reading this, I have passed, and Cordelia has likely made your life difficult. But I want you to know, I saw you. I saw how you suffered, how you protected your child with nothing but your will. I chose you, not because I pitied you, but because I admired you. Don't let the world harden you. Build something better. In memory of all of us who didn't. Alara wept silently. She shared the letter with Ivy and Adrian. I think it's time we finish what we started, Alara said. Legacy. 5 years later. Ivy stood on a grand stage in Ghana, launching the Ivy Grace International Academy, a school for vulnerable girls offering full scholarships and mentorship. Alara and Adrian, now semi-retired, watched from the front row, holding hands. We didn't get to choose how we were born, Ivy said to the crowd. But we can choose what we become. This school is not just for the lost girls, but for the strong women they will become. Thunderous applause filled the air. Later that evening, at a gala dinner under the stars, Ivy stood with her parents, looking out at the lights of Accra. I finally understand, Ivy said. Why you never hated your past. You turned it into power. Alara nodded. Because without that past, I wouldn't have met you. Or your father. Adrian smiled. And without all of it, we wouldn't be us. Asterisk. Wow, what a journey. I hope this story touched your heart just as much as it touched mine. It reminds us that sometimes life's harshest trials can lead us straight into unexpected blessings. Thank you so much for watching, beloved. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Your support helps me continue sharing these powerful, life-changing stories. Feel free to drop a comment below. Let me know what part of this story spoke to you the most. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay inspired, stay strong, and remember, your story isn't over yet.